Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to everyone. So before I begin speaking, I will chant a few prayers. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyutapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today I thought I could speak a little bit about chanting Hare Krishna. And the Hare Krishnas are known as Hare Krishnas because we chant Hare Krishna. And this chanting, so the Hare Krishna mantra, as we know, consists of 3 words: Hare, Krishna, and Rama, arranged in a certain order. It's very easy to remember. It's Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So why do we chant this mantra? What is chanting of mantra? What is mantra? What is chanting of mantra? So mantra refers to a sound vibration that delivers the mind. Mantra refers to, so mantra So in Sanskrit, you have derivatives of certain words. So the word mantra comes, the expansion of that word is mantrayateti mantraha. That which delivers the mind, that which liberates the mind is called mantra. What is it liberated from? The mind, by mantra, the mind is liberated from the shackles of material existence. The mind is liberated from anxiety, from depression, from degrading thoughts. This is what mantra means. It uplifts, it liberates. So currently our mind, because of identification with this body, it has thoughts which are called material. What does material thoughts mean? Material thoughts refer to thoughts that are disconnected from the reality that we are actually a spirit soul that occupies the body, not that we are the body itself. Why is this important? Because that when a person understands that they're not this body and that they're spirit soul, they understand that they're eternal. This is the door to understanding that there is a higher purpose in life. Otherwise, if one considers oneself the body, then ultimately all activities fall into simply 4 categories, which is called eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Animals do this. And animals do not feel the need to do anything other than these 4. You can take any activity that an animal does. It will fall into these 4. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, then humans could do the same thing, but the problem is that when humans try to live like that, generally they're not happy. Because they cannot be happy with just performing the 4 activities that animals perform without getting into anxiety, depression, or whatever of the sorts, or conflicts of a nature that's not even found in the animal kingdom. Why is that so? Because animals are able to eat, animals are able to sleep, animals are able to mate. They don't have the problems that we have in human society accompanying these things. Because the animal form of life is not meant for self-realization. And the human form of life is meant for that. And this is the gift of human life. And when we realize that gift, and that gift can only be realized if we understand that we're not the body, we're spirit soul. Otherwise, we can keep coming up with so many ideas about ourselves and the universe, but they are disconnected from the reality of actually who we are. If a person doesn't realize who they are, how can they find out what is best for themselves? For instance, if you don't realize what an object is, you don't realize what exactly a particular object is, how can you figure out how to use it? You may use it a little bit, but you will not be able to completely use it well, because you don't have what is called knowledge. And real knowledge means to understand the spirit soul, to understand spirit and matter. This is real knowledge. To understand the real position of spirit and to understand the real position of matter. And when the mind has thoughts that are not connected to spirituality, spiritual existence, then that is material thoughts. And those material thoughts, the reason why the mind needs to get liberated from those thoughts is because when you have just those 4 thoughts in human life, it is very difficult to be happy. In the long run, in the short run, you may feel happy. But in the long run, feeling happy is very difficult. Why? So you can eat, you can sleep, so what? You can get a big house, get a big car, get good partner, sex, whatever. But ultimately, even if one is quote unquote very successful in material life, at the time of death everything is over. Then what? Animals don't really have the need to inquire about these things or even inquire into the nature of reality. Animals don't want to ask, is there life on other planets? They don't ask. They also see the stars. They also see the sky. They see the sun, they see the moon. They don't have these kind of questions. They don't have questions about other nations, other people, other races. They don't have these kind of questions. But if you see a child, even a human child, from the very beginning starts asking questions. Because the human form of life is meant to acquire knowledge. But when Hare Krishna, when the human form of life, the mind is engaged in trying to answer questions that are actually irrelevant to our eternal existence, then the mind is shackled by material thoughts which actually creates unhappiness for us. Because we think ourselves to be the proprietor. I'm very attached to this phone, or I'm very attached to my car. I'm very attached to all these things. But little do I realize that I am actually not connected to them. Then when something happens to those objects, I suffer. I don't have to suffer. When it is because of my identification of such an object that I am suffering. If I have a car, somebody takes a sharp object and scratches the surface of the car, I feel like they've scratched my body. But that is because of my identification with that car. When it happens, to a car just on the street, I may feel sorry for the guy who owns the car, but it doesn't really affect my life. It's very, very important because this is a day-to-day thing that's happening to us. It's an everyday thing. And what happens? So when we identify ourselves with our race, when we identify ourselves with our country, when we get all kinds of emotions that come along with it. And these emotions lead to conflict of sorts. They lead to attachment of sorts. And this is the kind of thoughts that the mind is shackled in. Now, if knowledge is there. Now, we are receiving knowledge that we are not this body. Then why do we need mantra? When you have knowledge, why do you need mantra to liberate the mind? Because the mind is used, it's accustomed to thinking in a certain way. So the mind needs to get trained to come out of this habit. Sometimes even when you have knowledge, actually Arjuna makes this interesting question in Bhagavad Gita. He says, what is it, O Krishna, that even when a person knows that he's not supposed to be doing something, still does it as if he's being forced to do it? And Krishna explains it in terms of the modes of material nature. And that's a more detailed way of understanding this, a more what you could say, a more elaborate way of understanding, because there are states of mind. The mind can be in the state of goodness, it can be in the state of passion, it can be in the state of ignorance. And when the mind is in the state of passion and ignorance, it's practically uncontrollable. And mantra delivers the mind by bringing it out of these conditioned states so that the mind is able to think better. And that is the purpose of mantra meditation. Now, why sound? Why can't it be something else? Because just like and the Vedic scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, explains describes the mind as a material object. This is another thing that modern psychology, they don't understand the mind. They talk a lot about the mind. Ultimately, they just give you drugs. This is their final solution. They just drug the mind out and hope that it works. But the mind is a material object. So, just like we were talking, you have the phone is a material object. There is a way to use this. If you understand the object, then you know how to control it. You know how to use it. Knowing how to use it and using it is a way of controlling that object. So, the mind is a material object that is in us, it is in our body, it is part of what is known as the subtle covering around the soul. We have two kinds of body. We have the gross body that we see here that we can touch. This is made of the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether. Now, some people say, oh, that's a very crude, rudimentary, prehistoric form of thinking about elements. No, it's just a categorization. Modern chemistry categorizes it in the, you got the table of what? Periodic table. So then you have 110, 120 elements, something like this. And so it's just a different way of categorizing. And so you have that gross body which is made of these 5 elements, and then we have a subtle body which is made of mind, intelligence, and ego. And then underneath these 2 coverings lies the spirit soul, who we actually are. That is the I, is the spirit soul that's within all of us. Srimad Bhagavatam describes that spirit soul as being situated in the heart region of the living entity. So, it is this spiritual spark which is so powerful. The spirit spark is so infinitesimal, it is very small. But without that spirit spark, the body cannot function. It is this spirit spark that's found in all the living entities that differentiates between dead and living. That which is alive has the spirit soul in it. And that which is dead doesn't have that spirit soul. So, the mind is a material thing, just like earth, water, fire, etc., that is covering this body. And why is this mind so important? Because the mind is the first element that interacts with the gross body from the subtle body. So you have the ego, intelligence, and then you have the mind, and the mind is in contact with the 5 elements. So, and therefore the mind in the Bhagavatam is described as the repository of one's emotions. All of one's emotions, all of the feelings, what we call feelings, this all gets stored in the mind. And the mind is in contact with the gross elements, and we have feelings depending on whatever we see, whatever we touch. We see something, there is a feeling. When we smell something, there is a feeling that's because the mind is involved. So the mind is in one sense the bridge between us contacting this material nature, the physical elements, and the soul. And therefore this mind is such an important thing, because if you liberate the mind, then automatically you disconnect yourself from the emotions that one gets, or the emotions that arise by contact with with material objects. One is able to liberate oneself, go above those emotions, not become conditioned by them. Not that the emotions don't exist, but no longer are you controlled by those emotions. You are the master of those emotions. People many times think that becoming spiritual also means becoming emotionless. That is an artificial way of controlling the mind. That will not work. This whole idea, I'm going to still the mind, it doesn't work. Why? Because the mind is always in contact with matter. How is it in contact with matter? It doesn't necessarily mean touching things. This body that we have, we're already in contact with it. This physical body that we have. And this physical body, it makes us feel hunger. It gives us headaches, toothaches, whatever. And automatically there are emotions that come with that. There's a requirement to maintain this. And this physical body, now nobody, no spiritual path actually recommends suicide. It's a stupid thing. Why? Because when we understand that the spirit soul is eternal, we have to understand that unless the spirit soul gets liberated from material thoughts coming back again into this world, reincarnation will happen. So you can commit suicide, but you'll be born again. So then what's the point? The point is, when the spirit soul understands who it actually is, then it no longer strives to find, it no longer thinks this material world as a permanent place of its existence. And it heads back home, back to God, the spiritual world where we actually belong. And that's the whole process of liberation. So again, going back to the mind is already in contact with the physical elements. But right now, the mind is almost as if controlled by the physical elements. When the eyes see something beautiful, the mind generates a tsunami of emotions. And the person gets helplessly dragged towards that object of his sense gratification, whether he wants it or not. So basically, means when I say when he wants it or not, he wants it because he wants the pleasure out of it, even though sometimes he or she may realize that that's not good for me. They can't control, or when they see something, feel angry, and that anger just comes and it just completely overtakes them. Because the mind is generating all these heavy emotions because it is not liberated from these material thoughts. Now, even though the knowledge might be there, I'm spirit soul, I'm not this body, these things are temporary. We understand this world is temporary, things are in this world are temporary. I shouldn't make a big deal out of this and lose my composure. Still you lose the composure. Why? Because habit. The mind is, understanding is one thing, but being accustomed, and this, because the mind, it's molded by the emotions it feels. So it's like clay. And so it gets shaped. Now therefore mantra meditation. That mantra meditation is meditating upon the sound vibration to mold the mind to become liberated, from these material thoughts, so that one acts on the platform of the spirit, not on the platform of the body. Now, from the Bhagavad Gita, we receive information that the spirit soul is actually part and parcel of God. God is Supreme Spirit, Krishna is Supreme Spirit. And the spirit soul is part and parcel of that Supreme Spirit. And we are supposed to act on that platform, understanding that we are servants of Krishna. And that actually everything in this world was created by God, therefore belongs to Him. We are renting. And as tenants in this body, because this body isn't permanent, neither is our position in this world. There are things that tenants need to follow. And if we follow those things, we can be happy. But if we think ourselves to be the controller and proprietor of everything that we own, then we are like the tenants who do not recognize the ownership of the landlord. And for this, one requires a little bit of humility to understand, hey, actually we didn't create everything and we're not the controllers. There are, God is the creator, He's the controller. Now, at the same time, the Bhagavad Gita informs us, Krishna informs us of His wonderful nature. That Krishna is all attractive, He's all blissful, and He's all merciful, and He's all loving. That means He didn't create this place for us just to come here and suffer. But we're here to learn a lesson. And that lesson is that we're ultimately meant to engage in His service. And matter and spirit, including ourselves, belong to Him. And when we engage ourselves in that service, we actually become happy. Now, we gain this knowledge, but to act on that platform is another thing. And to act on that platform, we require mantra. And in this case, specifically, in this day and age, the mantra that has been recommended is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, why is this mantra recommended? Why not other mantras? Because, as we explained, when we understand this mind as a material object, we understand that we are in a certain age, which is in the Vedic text, like the Srimad Bhagavatam, is described as the Iron Age. It's called the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, where people quarrel over the most petty things, and they also tend to be hypocrites. Which means someone will act in one way in front of you, but they actually feel completely different. And it's very actually difficult to deal with people in this age. And so what does that mean when we say this age? It means that in this time period, the mind acts in a certain way compared to other ages. Again, mind is a material object. So, just like anything, there are certain atmospheric conditions that affect certain material objects. And depending on knowledge of such a thing, you know how to act with it. For instance, if there is if the weather outside becomes so cold to the extent that it's 3 degrees Fahrenheit, you get what's called frostbite. If the skin is exposed to wind chills beyond a certain number of minutes or seconds or whatever. I've seen videos of people, throw water from a jug or something, and it immediately freezes in air because it's so cold. Now, if you expose the skin, you're going to get frostbite. So it's what is this called? Scientific. Because the atmospheric conditions are such. Who are you to tell me what I want to do? I'll do whatever damn thing I want to do. Or go get yourself a frostbite. So, the Vedic scriptures inform us that the time and age is such that the mind is acting in a certain way. And for this, the recommended mantra is the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That is why Krishna consciousness is called a science. Because the mantra is recommended, and when we chant this mantra, we can feel the mind becoming liberated from degrading thoughts. And therefore, by chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra in this particular age, the mind becomes liberated. And another thing that is important for us to remind ourselves, whether we have been chanting Hare Krishna for many years, or we are just new to understanding this science of Krishna consciousness, we can notice that this mantra, it just consists of 3 words and it's in one particular format. But you'll see that devotees are chanting this all the time, every single day, again and again and again. We sing this mantra and we also chant it on beads. How are we able to do this? Well, how are we able to chant something again and again and again? There is nothing in life that we can chant like this. Devotees who take up to the process of Krishna consciousness are recommended to chant a minimum of 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna mantra. That's 16 times 108. Some 17,000 something. It comes to some number like this. So, that's a lot of times to chant one thing. And devotees chant it every single day. And then, if you come to Kirtans, like we just did right now, what are you doing? Singing the same thing. How is it possible? Can we do anything like this? Even when as spiritual practitioners, sometimes, it's like I'm really struggling and it's getting hard, and sometimes we get bewildered. These are some things to remember that, well, this is something real. This is something real. How are we able to do this? How are we able to do this if it's not something real? Could we chant anything else like that? Our favorite song? The name of a street? Or whatever. Our cherished sports star's name or whatever. Could we do it? It's impossible. We can't even chant even if you have a girlfriend, you can't chant their name so much. You can't do it. It's just not, but we chant the Hare Krishna mantra so many times. Because this mantra is spiritual. What is the nature of that which is spiritual? It is eternal. It is full of bliss and it is full of knowledge. Now, spiritual knowledge begins by understanding eternality. Then comes knowledge. Then comes bliss. First, one understands eternality. Second, one understands the nature, the characteristics of that eternality. That's called knowledge. What are the qualities? What are the characteristics? What does it mean? What is spirit? What is the nature? It means, what are the activities? Where does the spirit come from? What brings pleasure to the spirit? How is the spirit becoming conditioned by thoughts that are not good for itself, that makes it forget that it is spirit? This is called knowledge. And finally, when understanding all these things, one acts on that platform and one gets bliss. So, the first thing that we can understand by chanting the mantra is that this is eternal. And what is the proof of it being eternal? That we are able to chant it so many times. Even devotees who sometimes feel like this is hard to chant, still you're chanting that way more than you can chant anything else. Even sometimes when we're chanting, sometimes oh my God, it's just like I'm falling asleep and this is like, it's like my mind is really, wants to do something else and our attention keeps getting diverted. Still, we are chanting that Maha Mantra way more than we chant anything else in our life. Still. So that is proof of the eternal nature of the Hare Krishna mantra, that it is actually a spiritual sound vibration. And when we focus the mind on hearing this sound vibration, we can become liberated from the shackles of material existence. First, we experience the eternal nature of the Hare Krishna mantra. Then we experience the qualities and characteristics of Krishna, because the Hare Krishna mantra is non-different from Krishna. So we gain knowledge about who God is, what is the nature of spirit. Not just the spirit soul, but also of God. One gets all information about God. And then bliss, when one engages in service. The Hare Krishna mantra is actually a prayer for engaging in Krishna's service. This is ultimately, Srila Prabhupada described the Hare Krishna mantra as it's like the call of a child to its mother. So it's ultimately a prayer to Krishna that I've forgotten you, please engage me back in your service. I've forgotten that I'm your servant. So this is a very wonderful process and a very potent process. But it all begins and goes on eternally by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we should try to take up this process. Of course, when one begins, one can chant at least. And what is spiritual process? Spiritual process is called sadhana. Sadhana is spiritual exercise. So when you want to start lifting weights, you don't go ahead and lift 60 pounds. You do that, you're going to have problems. To gain the strength to lift 60 pounds, you need to practice with lower weights that you can handle, but it's like pushing it just a little bit. And especially when you start exercising first, you all experience probably having your muscles getting all sore. And when your muscles get sore, the temptation is give up. Just give up. But you have to keep going because the muscles have to get trained. So similarly, the mind has to get trained to focus on the Hare Krishna mantra when chanting. And this is called sadhana. There are other aspects to sadhana which involve a lifestyle that helps us act spiritual throughout our day. But it begins with the chanting. And so one should take a set number of rounds that one chants every day. Or at least initially, one could try to chant one full mala, one full string, which is 108. It takes about 10 minutes. Now, if that's difficult, start with 20 times, 30 times. But what does sadhana mean? Sadhana means it's exercise. You got to do it regularly. You have to do it every day. And if one doesn't do it every day, then one falls back. So this is the importance of sadhana. If you want to control the mind, if we want to actually become liberated from the cycle of birth and death, then we must have some seriousness in practice. You won't achieve anything in life if you don't do something regular. If a businessman wants to run a business, he's got to show up for that business. He's got to do it. He just, takes a vacation every 3 days. His business is not going to run. And that involves austerity. But in this case, we are doing austerity for who we actually are. I also need pizza. So to understand this is austerity for the soul. This is who we actually are. We do so many things for the body, but we forget the spirit soul. The description is, again, in the Bhagavatam, is like a bird in a cage. We're cleaning the cage very nicely, polishing the cage and keeping everything. We forget to feed the bird. The bird's dying inside. What's the use? So we have to take some time to take care of the spirit soul. And that's called sadhana. And that sadhana involves by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra regularly for a set number of time and then increasing. But trying not to fall back. Trying to maintain that progress and increasing. And in order to effectively increase and in order to maintain, especially to maintain, one should associate with devotees and learn the devotional lifestyle. The lifestyle that comes along with, just like you want to exercise, somebody wants to lose weight, they need to exercise. But then there's also lifestyle that goes with that. Exercise is good, but if your lifestyle sucks, then it's going to be very hard to lose weight. So similarly, with Krishna consciousness, the mantra is the main thing. Just like the exercise is the main thing. But if you don't have the accompanying lifestyle, you can't maintain it. So therefore, one comes in the association of devotees, reads the books, does service in the temple to Krishna, and learns the entire process of Krishna consciousness, takes Krishna prasadam. There's a whole culture that goes along with this. But that culture is all centered around the chanting. So, I'll stop here. If there are any questions or comments, we'll have a little chanting session. But before that, if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Yeah, we have the bags for it. You can help. Yeah, so Lekha Shravanti Mataji can help you get the bags. Any questions on what we spoke today? Any doubts? And yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, how does the intelligence influence the gross body? How does the intelligence, how does it go from ego intelligence into mind into gross body?
The intelligence affects things by telling us what is right and what is wrong. So that's where knowledge is required. Knowledge is required to refine that intelligence to determine what is good and what is bad. You don't have a clue what is good or what is bad, then also it's difficult to control the mind. So that's how intelligence influences things. But even with good intelligence, if the mind is not controlled, it's very difficult. That's why the devotional process, we take shelter of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And the mantra, Krishna being supremely powerful, he's actually more powerful than our mind, which sometimes feel like the most powerful thing in the universe. And Krishna is also the creator of the mind, and therefore he can control it. So that's the devotional process. We take shelter of higher power. The spiritual processes where they are trying to cultivate the intelligence and force the mind into control is a dangerous process. So, yeah. Yes.
Literature you can learn and study.
Oh, yeah. We have a lot of literature. Yeah. We have Jitagirish Prabhu. You can show him. We have what's called, that's good, that's great. But we have what's called, so we have the Bhagavad Gita, and then we have the Srimad Bhagavatam. This Srimad Bhagavatam is called a Vedic encyclopedia. And this Srimad Bhagavatam talks about everything that and it provides us all the tools that we need to understand who we are, what is this creation, what are we doing in this world, who is God, what is the nature of God, what are his activities, what is the nature of time, and karma. You understand this complete detailed activities about karma, and it also describes about the destruction of the universe, and it also gives us information about the spiritual world. So there is so much information and more than what I've just said. There's so much information in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have morning classes on this book every single day from Sunday to Friday. Every morning here at this temple. It's also free. You're all welcome. The class begins at 7:45 in the morning. We have a little chanting Kirtan session at 7:15, and you also get breakfast. But I'm just trying to say that we discuss this book literally every single morning it's just the same book. It's 18,000 verses, of course, but we discuss the same literature every single morning for over an hour. And there's so much to discuss because that's the amount of knowledge that's there. So, yeah, we have a lot of literature. We're all about literature. We love spiritual literature. There's so much knowledge. Hare Krishna, good question.
Suggestion for retired nurse. I just want to make sure if somebody is coughing and all, then can you please change your mic so you don't catch from the other person?
Oh, you mean the cover?
Yeah, just cover.
should
Put
try cover.
something there because I'm just concerned that there are too many viruses going on, and it's just a good thing because one of my friends just caught like that. Somebody was just coughing only, no other fever, nothing, from the scratch in the throat, and so she is positive now. So be careful, and because you don't want to get sick, and you live in the same dormitories and all. Yeah.
Thank
and,
you.
I hope you don't mind it. Just
No, not
concern.
at all. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Like even I'm holding. That's why they don't. You don't know who has it.
Yeah.
And it could be somebody could be carrier, and not have infection. So please be careful. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody has anything else? Okay. All right. So now we'll do a little chanting session. So these are beads. Again, why do we use beads? To count. They're prayer beads, and generally they're made of once one becomes committed in Krishna consciousness, one chants with what's called tulasi beads. So the beads are holy, they're sacred, they're made of sacred wood called tulasi, holy basil. And again, these are all different things that enable one to take shelter of Krishna. So we count in order to measure the amount of sadhana we do, which is spiritual exercise. So therefore beads and counting. So the way to hold these beads is we hold them with the thumb, and generally we use the middle finger, and we hold the bead that's after this bead here. This is the head bead where you have the string sticking out. So the bead after the one that has a hairstyle, that's the bead that we start from. So and we chant one full mantra on one bead, then we move on to the next one. And these sets of bead have 108. Again, there's significance to the number 108 and all that kind of stuff. But point is, it's used to count. Okay, so you can repeat after me as we practice, and then we'll chant together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So then you move on to the next one. And now we'll chant like this, we'll chant together. And how long do we generally chant? Do the full or just a couple of times? Okay, 10. Okay, so we'll chant about 10 of these. Okay, so at 3, 2, 1. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So it's very simple. Now we could chant a little more if you're all up for it. Should we do? A little more? 10. Huh? 10 more. All right, let's go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is so simple. You just think about it. We wouldn't have chanted anything like this in our lives so many times. I just haven't like this in kind of like succession as like this. It's kind of amazing. This is the names of God, and it's spiritual. And there is a taste to these names. And you can taste that transcendental flavor. This mantra can be chanted at any time, any place, any circumstance, by anybody. You can chant it while walking. You can chant it sitting down. You can chant it with your eyes open or eyes closed. But the main thing is to focus on the sound vibration. Try to bring that mind to the sound vibration. So, so I'll stop here. Thank you very much for coming. And you're welcome also to come in the mornings on weekdays. Just you'd have to call us though, because the door won't be open like the way it is open right now. But if you contact any one of us, we'll be happy to open the door for you. And we hope to see you again next Sunday. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So now we'll go downstairs for prasadam. He can have the beads. Just ask him to give a donation. Or just give the beads when they ask him. The books, yeah. Where's Jita?
I'll get some.